Our first performer tonight is a retired philosophy professor. He's a musician. He's a Davis resident. He's an odd fellow, but not that odd. And he's got a couple of grandkids, been married for a very long time, and he's going to kick our show off tonight. So please, give a nice round of applause to Kurt Roggli, ladies and gentlemen. Kurt!
Hey. I guess I'm supposed to say, how's everybody? All doing good out there?
Yeah.
All right. Welcome to the Oddfellows Hall. I really love this old place, despite all of its quirks. The first thing you notice when you walk in the hall, I think, is you notice it has that funky old-time smell. You ever notice that? That smell that you kind of like, but you kind of don't like at the same time. You know, it reminds me of the bedroom my brother and I shared when we were teenagers. An aromatic mix of potato chips, English leather cologne, and decomposing underwear. Everything in this building is old, and that means that it's slow. The elevator, for example, in the back has been here for 50 years. If you see somebody walking around in the hall with an overnight bag and some snacks, you know they're being prepared. They're preparing themselves to take that elevator all the way to the second floor. So, wish them good luck, bon voyage. You won't be seeing them for a while. It's also true that the motion sensor lights in the bathroom, I don't know if you've noticed, take a while to come on. I'll walk into the bathroom, the men's room, and I'll bounce off the wall 3 or 4 times. And when the lights finally click on, I realize I'm peeing in the trash can, for God's sake. Again. But you know, you can't really mess up a men's room. I mean, a men's room's already disgusting. Am I right? I mean, that's a place where old men go to dribble and young men go to mark their territory, mark their scent. They'll spray everything in sight. I mean, they'll spray the urinal, they'll spray the floor, they'll spray the toilet seat, they'll spray the guy sitting on the toilet seat. Yeah, no mercy. Let's see. Many of you, most of you are Oddfellows. All the people performing are going to be Oddfellows, and most of you know that. Yeah, let's hear it. Most of you know that Oddfellows began in English taverns back in the 1700s, where some guys would get together and over more than a few beers would talk about, I don't know what, burying the orphan and educating the dead or something along those lines. But they also like to create some symbols, you know. If you're in a bar, a tavern like that, and everybody's drunk, one thing you know is there are no secrets. Everybody blabs everything, right? And so the early Oddfellows, they liked that. They liked the fact that there was this openness and transparency, and they wanted to capture it in a symbol. So they came up with the first Oddfellow symbol, which was the all-hearing ear. You didn't hear about that one, did you? Yeah. The all-hearing ear. You know, there are no secrets from the ear that hears everything. It was kind of a good symbol, but unfortunately the one they picked looked like a chimp ear that had fallen off of Mr. Potato Head. You know, I mean, it was pretty lame. So it only lasted a while. Then they decided they could do better. So they looked around the tavern full of drunks, and they noticed that everybody's eye looked pretty much the same. All the eyes looked the same. So they came up with the second Oddfellow symbol, which was the all-seeing bloodshot eye, which has now just become the all-seeing eye, right? But that original symbol of the all-seeing bloodshot eye is still very, very popular up in the Humboldt Lodge up there. We call it the Ganja Lodge, you know. Stoner eye, dude. I mean, man, that guy's really baked. Oddfellows rule, you know. They just love it. And to their great credit, they also hearken back up there to the older symbol, the all-hearing ear, right? And they do this every time they pass the roach clip, you know? It's, ear. Yeah, God bless them. But in addition to creating symbols, sitting around the Oddfellow taverns there, they also came up with an initiation ritual, which evidently many fraternities have followed. It's kind of a wild and crazy early initiation ritual. I mean, have you ever tried riding a goat? Yeah? You ever tried riding a goat naked? Ever try riding a goat naked with a beer in each hand? It ain't easy, you know. You got to give them credit for going through that initiation. It ain't easy, and it's damn messy. So a lot of the Oddfellow brothers started wearing vests to protect themselves, you know, against the slosh and such. And they became very fond of these vests, and they started embroidering them and putting fringe on these vests, you know, tricking them out so they look really nice. And they liked them so much that they started wearing them to the more formal events. And sure enough, if you look at old Oddfellows photos, you can see here these old guys standing around their suits, their tie, they got their regalia, and they got their fringed out beer bibs, you know. It looked like a convention of retired pimps, you know. I mean, very weird. Even today, in the Oddfellows Lodge, when you're initiated, I don't know if many of you remember this, but when you're initiated, you get the cutest little white little trainer bib. You notice that? Yeah, to get you on your way. Well, anyway, I've said a lot about the initiation. I probably shouldn't say too much more because I've sworn a solemn oath to not reveal the mysteries of the order. But I can tell you that for many of us, when we leave the hall here after a meeting, there's one mystery of the order that always recurs, and that is, where the hell did I park my goat? I mean my car. My car. Where the hell is that thing? I was up until a few weeks ago, I guess a month or so ago. I was the head of the Oddfellows Lodge here in Davis, and I got a chance to wear a burgundy robe trimmed in gold, yeah. And I got to wear bling draped over my shoulders, you know, my regalia. I got to sit in this fancy throne. Yeah, it was something, huh? Yeah. And I had the title Noble Grand. But you know, I don't know. Noble Grand to me sounds more like a pretentious Starbucks drink. You know what I mean? Like every time I'm in Starbucks, I get embarrassed. You know, I'm in Starbucks, okay, first. But also when the barista starts handing out the drinks, you know. Let's see, I have a chai latte here. Okay, that's for Jordan. I have a decaf macchiato for Fred. Let's see, I have a tall Noble Grand. Tall Noble Grand? Who's the tall Noble Grand? Noble Grand, present. Oh, gee. It's very embarrassing. I joined the encampment, and when you join the encampment, you get a purple fez. Yeah, purple fez. I don't wear it very often, because when I put it on, I feel like a 6-foot-tall pencil with a purple eraser. You know what I mean? It's just not me. I don't know. There are many events here that we have at the Oddfellows Hall. That's one of the reasons I love this old place. Every fall we have an event called the Oddtoberfest, which some of you might have been to, you know, where we have, we have polka and pretzels and pilsner. We're also lucky enough here at the hall to have our own in-house band called the Davis Odd Stars. So, you know, Odd Stars, Odd Fest, we like to play with the word odd, okay? So, for example, if you're in the hall and you hear someone refer to a odd man out, that refers to a lodge member that's drunk too much, okay? You might be surprised to learn that the term odd number actually refers to a joint that's as big as a wiffle ball bat that the vice grand up at the Humboldt Lodge tries to smoke, and he tries to like that damn thing, you know? That's an odd number. Well, of course, we have everybody's favorite, oddities. Oddities, of course, refers to what a lodge bikini top covers. Oh, the audience is all a titter here, I see, huh? I'm just trying to keep you abreast of what the odd fellows do, okay? Yeah. You know, at one time, Oddfellows used to be the largest fraternal organization in the country. There were Oddfellow halls everywhere. Tragically, many of them are now gone, but the old buildings remain. The Oddfellow buildings remain with the 3 links on top. But even the people who are around these buildings, oftentimes the locals, they don't have any idea what these buildings were or who inhabited them. As a matter of fact, my wife and I were in Boston a couple of, well, I guess a year or 2 ago. And we're sitting in a bar in Boston, and I look across the street and I can see that there's an Oddfellows building there with the 3 links on top. And I'm thinking, well, maybe there's an active lodge here, you know, so check it out. So when the waitress came by on the pass, I said, excuse me, can you tell me, are there any men in the lodge tonight, pardon me, any men in the bar tonight that hang with lodge members? And she said, hang with what? And I said, hang with lodge members. And she said, you know, she said, you know, I'm not really sure how many of the fellas here are sporting a large member, but I hear that George over there is wicked hung. So I guess at least George must be an odd fellow, huh? Come on, guys. Well, anyway, thank you very much. You've been great.
Kurt Roggli, ladies and gentlemen, let him hear it. Off to a good start. Our next performer coming to the stage is going to require the microphone to be slightly lower. She is known as as Fun Maria, or some of you know her as the Bike Lady. She is an Oddfellow member, and she's also a lover of tiny creatures that she will tell you about. Please welcome Maria Contreras-Tibbet, ladies and gentlemen.
To all my DBC friends, Davis Bike Club friends. Yay! Bring it on, bring it on. I got something for you, little lady. I got notes here just in case I forget everything I'm supposed to say, because the lights hit your face and suddenly it's gone. Welcome here to Davis. Davis, the city of all things right and relevant. I don't know where the hell that came from, because truly, you know, we're talking about left and relevant, you know? But everything I needed to know, I have learned from my Zen hamsters. Let me explain. Unlike dogs that can cost thousands of dollars, hamsters don't need shots. You don't need to get them fixed. It's not like you're going to be buying any hamster health care, because you're probably never going to be taking a hamster to the vet. Bonus points! Hamsters are vegans. The perfect low-carbon Davis pet. They've taught me so much. I love hamsters. They're cute. They're really cute. But the thing you gotta remember about the hamster is that they have a very short lifespan. I mean, maybe 2 years. And that's if your dog or your cat doesn't scarf them up like some tasty hors d'oeuvre. Okay? Hamsters have a mantra. Live simply, so that others may simply live. I'm telling you, it's really good stuff. Really good stuff you get from the hamster. That's why I've had several. I've had several. Hamid, Houdini, Hamtaro, and Cookie. So, Hamid, a really small Russian dwarf hamster. And I'm here to tell you, he had a really bad attitude and really big teeth. While trying to feed some tasties to my hamster, he embedded those big teeth in my fingertip. Blood was gushing everywhere. Not his, mine. My blood gushing everywhere. Hamid taught me 2 life lessons. Some are born to be biters. And 2, do not bite the hand that feeds you. It's bad. It's bad. On to Houdini. Now, Houdini could get out of any cage. Any cage. I finally put the cage in the bathtub, closed the glass doors, hoping to keep Houdini in the tub. But Houdini got out. Houdini ended up taking up residence behind the dishwasher, where you will smell your pet for a while before you actually find your little crispy critter. All in life is impermanent. And on to back to Petco. Okay, Petco. Petco. You know, you can pick up a hamster for about 20 bucks. 15 bucks when they're having a sale. And I got Hamtaro. Hamtaro was so cute. It was love at first sight. He was a teddy bear hamster. Who couldn't fall in love with something called a teddy bear? Teddy bear, those little shiny eyes, his fluffy fur, yes. And Hamtaro taught me that all good things must come to an end. And back to by this point, I'm really wishing Amazon had some sort of like drone hamster delivery service. You know, maybe Grubster could add hamsters to their menu delivery, but no, you gotta pick out your own. And so back to Petco I go, where there is a big cage filled with a lot of hamsters. All colors, all fur types, all sizes. But across that crowded cage, I lock eyes with Cookie. Cookie. Cookie is a long-haired teddy bear hamster. Long hair. So cute. I'm telling you, she's a big girl. Big girl. Almost 2 hands to hold that hamster. Now, Cookie, interestingly enough, seems to know more about life than most people I know. Yeah, I'm telling you. Cookie, when I tried to feed her, stands up and gently and delicately accepts the tiny tidbits of food that I give her, and when I feed her her bowl, as if it is manna from heaven. Gently and appreciatively, yeah. And you know what? Unlike the rest of us, she does not overeat. No! She saves some for later, stores it away. She keeps a very tidy cage. Her bathroom is far away from the food storage area. No? Cookie makes her bed every day. Do you? How about you? Do you make your bed every day? Yeah. No. And from only a sheet of newspaper. The girl recycles. Marie Kondo's got nothing on her. Yeah. Cookie has inspired me to be a better bike rider. Some of you know me as the bike lady. I like to ride my bike. Most people just use their stationary bikes as places to dump clothes in their bedroom. Cookie gets on hers. for an hour, 2 hours every night. She is going down the highway. She is looking for adventure. She knows how to do it. And unlike those unused stationary bikes, when Cookie isn't using her wheel, she sits upon it in Buddha pose, eyes closed, in quiet meditation. She is not worrying about gaining weight. She is not worrying about being on a diet. She is not worrying about whether or not her butt looks big. No, Cookie has taught me, don't worry, be happy. Recently, in the middle of the night, I heard a thunk by the side of the bed. And it turns out my husband was having some kind of a nightmare about a spider on his chest, and he's trying to swat it away. I am finally starting to drift back to sleep when out of the corner of my eye, I see something that looks like a big, hairy tarantula. I turn on my light, only to find Cookie. Cookie. Apparently, she had tired of her midnight workout routine. And instead of meditating, she had been plotting her escape. She took that sheet of newspaper that she usually makes her bed from, and she wedged it underneath the wheel to keep it from moving so that she could climb to the top of it, push open the lid to the cage, and drop 4 feet to the floor. From there, she decided to go on a hike. 25 feet down my hallway, passing 7 doors, only to enter the 8th, my bedroom door. From there, she climbed up on the closest person to the door, which happened to be my husband. He swatted her off, and she fell to the floor. Undeterred, she continued her hike around the bed, climbed up on the big pillow. You know those big pillows you put behind, you know those piles of pillows you have next to your bed. She climbed right on up that pile, only to visit me. True love. Cookie taught me that if you really love something, set it free. If it comes back to you, it's yours. If it doesn't, well, it's probably behind the, and back to Petco.
Maria Contreras-Tibbet, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Maria. So when we start on our next comedian coming up is Ed Lewis. Ed is a retired teacher and professor of early childhood education. He has 4 children of his own. He now has, 6, I believe, grandchildren, ranging in the age from 2 to 17. He's told stories in the past. He is here tonight to give you a little bit of his stand-up comedy. So please welcome Ed Lewis, ladies and gentlemen. Ed!
All right, well, thank you all for coming this evening. Before I begin this true personal story, keep in mind that everything I'm about to tell you about my questionable teenage behavior is not my fault. Back in 8th grade, in the middle-class town of Tacoma, Washington, I was sitting on top of the world with all of my greaser buddies. I was popular. I had a 3.5 grade point average, and I sported a DA. And I don't know if any of you know what that is, but it's a duck's ass, where you take a little dab, will do you, of Brill cream, that lovely grease, after singing the song, which, if you know it, sing it along with me. Brill, cream, a little dab will do ya. Use more, only if you dare. So us boys that had straight hair, we'd put that Brill cream in our hair and bring it back into what looked like a duck's ass. And then we would take the little bit of dabble do ya in the front. That's when, had a little more hair up here. And we would bring it down just like our idols, James Dean and Elvis Presley. We were so cool. Everything was perfect. I was going into 9th grade. I had it made, and then my father ruined my life forever. He moved us to Seattle, to Ivy League hell. For a greaser, this was the worst thing that could ever happen. The boys had crew cuts. They wore cardigans. The girls, they were worse. They wore these starched white blouses with plaid skirts that went over their knobby knees. And the worst invention in the history of shoemaking, saddle shoes. Oh my God. But I was a clever 9th grader, and I figured out a way to get back to Tacoma. It was 3rd period. Mr. Moffat, he was the math teacher, he was up at the board. And I walk in with my leather jacket, leathers, and I walked up to him, and he was bald and glasses and kind of a round belly, I guess a little like me. And I said, Mr. Moffat, you're an effing asshole. And all of these punk Ivy Leaguers are effing assholes also. And my plan worked. I got suspended. And I knew now, okay, we're going to have to move back to Tacoma. To my surprise and dismay, that didn't happen. But my teenage revenge was swift. I got kicked out of the marching band for being drunk at a football game. I delighted in taking all my homework and torching it, leading to a 1.2 grade point average in my senior year of high school. And the best of all, in 11th grade, I joined a motorcycle gang that was called the Greasers. And it was led by the coolest greaser you can ever imagine, Elvin Dick. Elvin had leathers, the shiny leather jacket, and he had a starched white t-shirt. And in that t-shirt, he had rolled up his Camel cigarettes that we all smoked because we didn't really have the money to get them ourselves. The best thing, though, he had an FLH Harley Davidson motorcycle. Black with a sidecar. Man, it was slick. And I became the vice president, and whenever we would go out to rumble, I got to go into that sidecar seat. Well, every Saturday, we would head out, the greasers would head out down to the famous Pike Place Market and look for other Ivy League gangs to rumble with. Now, none of us had ever been in a fight, and none of us had motorcycles. So the other 8 had to take the bus down to the bus depot. And so we all met down there, and then we fanned out looking for a gang to rumble with. We'd been reading books about the New York gangs, and we were cool. We were going to show how tough we were. There were no Ivy League gangs. But we headed out. Just one night, I decided I'm going to show that I am the toughest greaser around. So we all fanned out to look for these gangs to rumble with. I went into an alley, and I punched myself in the lip about 10 times. I had a nice gash and some blood was running out. I took it and I smeared it on the wall. And then I ran back to the gang and I said, hey man, these 2 Ivy Leaguers jumped me in the alley. No problem. I smashed their heads against the wall and they might still be laying there. let's go, man. Their gang might be coming soon. We can get in a rumble. And of course, we went down there, and I showed them the blood. No one was there. And I now had the moniker as the toughest greaser there was. And I tell you what, I think this is where my storytelling career began. And I've been thinking about a new committee with the Oddfellows. It's called the Greaser Motorcycle Gang. And if you want to join, at least one of us needs a motorcycle. And boys, men, no cardigans, get the leathers out. And women, oh, come on. No plaid skirts. Get the leathers going. And definitely no saddle shoes. And if any of you want to join this gang, you can email me, make sure you jot this down, ed-greaser@ducksass.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Ed Lewis, let him hear it, ladies and gentlemen. How about that? Our next performer is a native Californian. He's lived in Davis for, I think, the past 10 years, and he's been an Odd Fellow for quite a bit of time. He's contributed and helped with a bunch of the events that you folks do over the course of the year, and he's very funny. Here to tell you a story about his travels is Matthew Elliott, ladies and gentlemen. Give Matthew. Matthew!
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's great to be here. So I finally started traveling again, now that we can, and I took a train direct from Davis all the way to Salt Lake City. And that's a long ride. I mean, that train is overnight, and I took that coach class, which is tantamount to playing the odds at that distance, I mean, it's one thing to smell a little body odor in your train car, right? Or to hear someone dry heave. That's kind of par for the course, right? But it's another thing entirely to have like a full-on deep rural drunk on your train. I mean, this guy, so this is a true story. This guy comes lumbering down the aisle, right? He's bracing himself on seat backs, and he's making his way to the door to change train cars. And when he gets there, he turns to me and he goes, "Do you know where I can find a bag? Is that a Metallica shirt? I fucking love them. Born to be wild. Shit's awesome." But yeah, so as a lot of you probably know, that's a Steppenwolf song, and I'm explaining this to this guy, and he's all shaking his head like, "No, man, I thought you were a Metallica fan." But yeah, everyone's been in that situation. I love when that happens. It's usually with a friend or something where you're getting a bunch of pushback, even though you know the precise answer to whatever it is, right? But normally you just pull out your phone and Google and figure out what the answer is, and you're like, Harry Potter was not fucking played by Elijah Wood, dude. But, so there was no time for something like that with this guy. He's a mess, right? I mean, he's all bobbing his head, mumbling, "Looking for adventure," And this guy, he points to me, he goes, "You look like a singer. Sing it. Sing it or I'll jack off in front of you." Like what the? Yeah, so for whatever reason, like in awkward or insane situations, I kind of get diplomatic. It's like my survival, But I immediately say, I don't think the other passengers would enjoy that. But yeah, so it's like what he said, like the worst possible persuasive argument imaginable, maybe ever. Like, has that ever worked? Like, pass the carrots or I'll jack off in front of you. Give me your wallet or I'll jack off, I swear. But yeah, anyway, I'd never heard anyone in my life say something like that. So to me, he was a visionary for sure, just like a waking nightmare sort of visionary. But yeah, anyway, just as quickly as that's all happening, the door slides open and there's this old woman standing there. And he just stands up all stoic immediately and goes, "Oh, beg your pardon, ma'am." And she just walks by, just stares forward, just stumbles ahead and disappears like I never existed. And I never saw him again. That was it. But that's it. That's the staple of American rail, right? At that kind of distance. He's sort of a wild card, right? But like, I mean, I'm sure some of you have traveled in Europe by rail, and it's, I mean, guaranteed you're going to have a nice, relaxing journey. You're going to enjoy some gentle conversation along the way, you know, with the peers around you. And but here in the States, you're going to have like a conductor every once in a while who's like pleading into the intercom, like, "Attention Amtrak passengers, for the love of God, no walking barefoot through the dining car, please. And again, no jacking off on passengers. Thank you." But yeah, so anyway, I make it to Salt Lake City, right? I get there and step off the platform at, it was 3:45 a.m. That's brutal. But yeah, so I hop over to 7-Eleven, grab myself a cup of coffee, and stand outside waiting for something useful to open, right? And while I'm out there, I get to meet a self-identified vampire. Super helpful. And she proceeded to explain to me how she'd been living on the streets most of her adult life, right? But she had been getting by, you know? So, like, kudos to her. But it got me thinking, like, and think about this for a second. Like, what the hell happened to vampires? Like, it was not that long ago where vampire life was, you know, you're hosting fucking dignitaries at your castle or your estate, and you're like feasting on the blood of freaking aristocrats. You have, like, you know, the whole Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt, they're interior decorating together, they're flaunting their wealth. It was classic vampire stuff, like coffins. But now they're out on the streets. And I, for one, would like to know what the fuck happened to vampires to fall from grace like that into such despair. Living under bridges? Not enough people are talking about this. But anyway, that's my time. Thank you so much. That's a good 5 minutes right there. Real pleasure. Thank you.
Matthew Elliott, ladies and gentlemen, Matthew Elliott. Our next performer is Chuck White. Chuck has been, he's semi-retired engineer who is a lobbyist for many years. He's been a Davis resident on and off since 1974. He told me that he frequently does presentations using a PowerPoint, but tonight he's on his own, ladies and gentlemen. So give him a nice round of applause. Here's Chuck White. Just let me get started. So a lot of friends and neighbors ask why I wear shorts virtually year-round. And my response to that is, it's not cold here in California. If you want to try cold, go back to Michigan, where I grew up. It's cold in Michigan. Well, I was raised by my adoptive parents in a little town called Okemos, Michigan, that was named after the famous and proud Chief Okemos of the Chippewa Nation, when what was once called Michigama. And we took the name the Okemos Chieftains as our logo in school, in high school. We weren't the Okemos Squaws. We weren't the Okemos Redskins. We were the proud Okemos Chieftains. I don't know if you can, in the back you can see this. Okemos Chieftains. But then, in this era of political correctness, the decision was made to change the name from Okemos Chieftains to the Okemos Wolves. Now, wait a minute. Let me get this straight. Proud chieftain is worse than a mangy wolf? That doesn't ever made much sense to me. But the good news is the town of Okemos is still called Okemos. It hasn't been changed to Wolftown. And the police head of the police department there is still called the police chief. And the head of the fire department is still called the fire chief.
Oh, well, there's still time, there's still opportunity for more political correctness in Okemos, Michigan, I'm sure. Have you ever heard there's a northern quail called a Bob White? Might be called a Chuck White someday. Bob White is my dad's name, of course, and we used to tease him a lot because he was Bob White. And he'd get back at us. The Bob White, the quail, would make this funny little sound called Bob White, Bob White, Bob White. So my dad would chase us, my mom, myself, my friends around the house in the neighborhood going, Bob White, Bob White, here comes Bob White. Bob White's gonna get you. Well, when I was really young, I wasn't sure whether my dad was a human or a big bird. But by the time I reached my teenage years, I was pretty convinced that he was just a harmless lunatic. Chuck White, that's my name. It's a pretty innocuous, vanilla name. But that all changed when I got into high school. I was about 14. And a song came on the radio called The Name Game. Now, you may not remember The Name Game, but we'll sing it for you in a second. And it was Shirley Ellis did it, and it basically involved changing the first consonants of anybody's given name to B, F, or M. So Shirley was obviously made fun of when she was young, because the first verse goes, Shirley, Shirley, Boberly, Banana, Fana, Foferly, Fee, Fi, Momerly, Shirley. There you go, good, some of you got that. And of course my name, which was vanilla and rather innocuous, suddenly became the most popular name to be used in the name game. And that verse goes, Chuck, Chuck, Bo, Buck, Banana, Fana, Fo. Fuck! I couldn't wait for that song to recede into the dustbin of history. But that took a while. I still had 4 more years to go in high school. Eventually, my fellow students kind of gave up on it, but the teachers, every time I'd go down the hall, Buck, Buck, Chuck, Buck, Chuck, Chuck, Buck. You know, what is wrong with these people? Long before I became Chuck, Chuck, Bobuck, when I was younger, my mother and my friends called me Chucky. Now, it was a term of endearment, and it was really nice when you're little. But after a while, Chucky, come home. Where are you, Chucky? Chucky, Chucky, Chucky. And I pretty much decided I didn't like to be called Chucky anymore. I wanted to be called Chuck, Chaz, Chuckles even, even Charles. But I never wanted to be called the diminutive Chucky after that point. And I learned a lot of lessons in life about not wanting to use a diminutive term or label for people you meet on the street. It really could upset them. And one seminal event in particular rings true in my mind. When I was in college as a freshman, walking across the Michigan Quad, there was this beautiful young female student that I was following, and I was thinking, geez, is there a way that I can make a hit on her? Well, she was walking along in a winter snowstorm, and she managed to drop a glove. So, quick thinking on my part, I ran after her, picked up the glove, and ran up further after her. When I caught up to her, I said, hey, girl, you dropped your glove. She stopped, turned around, and said, thank you, boy. Grabbed the glove, walked off, and needless to say, my hoped-for hit didn't happen. Did I say that I was adopted? Yes. I think I mentioned that. I never really thought much about being adopted because I was raised by Bob and Willie. They were friendly. I was an only child, spoiled rotten. and I loved every minute of it. So I never really thought much about what my birth parents or my birth family might be. But I did know the story that Bob and Willie told me that when they went to adopt me, they had to travel to Kansas City to a big white hospital on a hill, and they were able to hopefully take me home. But when they got there, they weren't allowed to take me home because the hospital thought that I had hydrocephalus. So my mom and dad-to-be had to wait several months until the hospital was able to make the decision that I did not have hydrocephalus. I simply had a very large head. After several years, my parents passed away, and I was going through some of my mom's stuff, and I came across a small box that was labeled, of course, Chucky. And in that box was the original state of Missouri, Kansas City birth certificate that I'd never known about, had never ever seen before. And it was a really kind of a curiosity to me. And on it was listed my birth mother's name, Vivian Ackerston from Newark, New Jersey. Well, what was Vivian doing from Newark doing in Kansas City? But the strangest thing was the place for my father's name was noticeably blank. So that really kind of made me start thinking about, well, maybe I should find out a little bit more about my birth family. And lo and behold, I joined 23andMe. And before long, I found out I had several half-brothers back east. And we all had the same father, but we all had different mothers. And it turns out my newfound family thought of my birth father as a bit of a philanderer. And it turned out his name was Max Urban. And he was a rather famous architect. You can look him up in Google if you want. And he went up and down the East Coast, designing buildings and constructing them. And when he had time, he was impregnating women. And I'll get it in a second, just don't worry. One of the places where he traveled to, of course, was Newark, New Jersey, where Vivian lived. And they struck up a thing. And after some fateful encounter between Max and Vivian, Vivian had to be hustled off by Max onto a train to go to Kansas City, Missouri, to a big white hospital on a hill that was called the Willows. And there's actually a book written about the Willows and other similar institutions in Kansas City, because Kansas City, being a center of the U.S. and rail access to all corners, it kind of became the unwed mother capital of the United States. And there's a bunch of similar places, but the Willows was the fanciest of them all. Thank you, Max. Appreciate it. It was nice to send Vivian to a nice fancy hospital for unwed mothers. Well, that's basically where I was born, waiting for Bob and Willie and get over my hydrocephalus and join them. There's an interesting footnote to this story, however. Max's brother, Bob Urban, had a family, and he immigrated to Australia. And one of his sons was born Keith Urban. And lo and behold, at some point in time, Keith, for some reason, decided to anglicize his last name to Keith Urban. You may have heard of him before. He's kind of a famous country rock and roll star. And frankly, since I've became familiar with this new family, I've been waiting for front row tickets to one of his concerts. That hasn't happened yet, but more importantly, I'm really interested in meeting his wife, Nicole Kidman. Now, Nicole Kidman is somebody I've had a bit of a crush on for a long time. And let's see, Nicole's been with Tom Cruise. She's been with Jude Law, been with Russell Crowe, and she's now with my cousin Keith. So when he brings her to California, I'm really looking forward to meeting her and getting better acquainted with her. And I'm pretty sure she's never been with a man like me that has such a large head. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Chuck White! Chuck White! We have two more performers for you this evening. Coming to the stage right now is a gentleman who was born in the desert wilds of Arizona. He's been a Davis resident for a while. He's the owner of the handheld sweet and savory pies that you all enjoy. He is the chef here at the Oddfellows Hall. He says that he's wandering around in a bit of a brain fog, but I don't believe it. Please welcome, very funny, Michael Sutton, ladies and gentlemen. Michael!
I was here for Jack. Yeah, very good. All right, so most of you are odd fellows here, so you better laugh at all my jokes, or else I am going to spike the next lasagna with X-Lax at the next club night. That actually might help for some of you older ones, but anyway. So, as you said, I moved here 12 years ago with my wife and my kids. We moved here from Phoenix, which is a much different place than here. In Phoenix, we were the ultra-left liberals that were out to destroy the United States as you know it. We were, we were rebels. We had something to fight for, We got called crazy names all the time. People said we were, pinko commies who were who were looking for a safe space to doodle in our coloring books. I totally miss it. But when we moved here, it's like we're just nothing. We're normal, run of the mill, and I've even been mistaken for a conservative here. Composting is basically non-existent in Phoenix. Most people in Phoenix think composting is an online communist messaging board or something. But I know how to do it. I'm just lazy. You have a bin for your garbage, a bin for your recycling, and then you add a third bin for whatever. It's too much for an ex-red stater like me. So when we moved here, my twins were 5. And now they're 17. That's the brain thing I was talking about, the fog. And now they're 17. So, and like all teenagers, they think they're the damn coolest, and I'm a total piece of shit, basically. But I try to keep, showing them things like, I'm cool, telling them things from my past, telling them what I used to do, like how I used to hang out with Tony Hawk. And they have no clue who he is. It's not impressive at all. But then one day they come home from school and they're like, Dad, your friend or whatever, Tony Hawk, died. And I was like, what the fuck? Yeah, that's right. I cuss in front of my kids. I've always cussed in front of my kids since the day they were born. I want to call it a nursery room, but it's not that. It's called a delivery room. In the delivery room, I was like, holy shit, there's fucking 2 of you? And then, so I'm like, what did your teacher say? And they're like, oh yeah, they said Tony Hawk was this super amazing scientist and well-respected. And I was like, oh, fuck, they're talking about Stephen Hawking. And so I mean, I wouldn't put it past Stephen Hawking to be able to like grind a rail or two on his motorized mobility chair. You know, hit the half pipe at just the right angle. But so I had to explain to them who Stephen Hawking was. You know, he's this like groundbreaking and amazing astrophysicist who, you know, learned everything about skating and science from me. Now I got to stop here for a second because I was kind of concerned about telling this joke because I thought it might be a little too dark. You know, my Phoenix side was rising from the ashes. So, but I think Steven's up, you know, up in the cosmos looking down on me, you know, and laughing or typing LOL. But my sorry. So yeah. So one of my kids, when my kids were born, they were brothers, but now I have a son and a daughter, thanks to the magic of her personal freedom of choice. So I'm cool with transgender issues, and she's teaching me to be cooler with them, you know, all the time. She puts up with me calling her he on accident every once in a while. But what I'm really trying to get used to is like having a daughter overall, because I know, you know, I don't know what it was like growing up, but I know most teenage girls like makeup, but yeah, but I didn't know how much of an obsession it could really be. Like she has some sort of sparkly, dusty, inky implement for every and any occasion. And that shit gets everywhere. It's everywhere, and the bathroom is no exception. And now that she feels like she doesn't have to put the toilet seat up, she's like pissing all over it as well. Anyway, I've been working in the food industry for over 20 years now, and I started as a server in a gourmet Italian restaurant in Phoenix. And I fell in love with it my first day on the job. I remember watching my chef put out immaculate dishes like works of art. He would go from one side of the kitchen to the other like a ballerina. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was his point shoes or if it was his tutu or the fact that he was completely wasted on cheap red wine and prescription pills. But that's when I knew this job is for me. So my very first night when I'm cleaning up the front of the house, you know, cleaning up the dishes and closing it down, my chef comes hobbling out and he starts heaving. And I go, shit. I run as fast as I can to the kitchen, go to the dish pit, pick up the first big bowl I could find, come back to him and hold it under his chin, and he starts puking. We're talking violently vomiting. And my arm started feeling a little wet. And I assumed it was, just because I got it from the dish pit, you know, residual wetness. And but they kept getting wetter and wetter. And so I looked down and I noticed I got a big colander and not a bowl. So needless to say, I stuck with him for years because he had christened me with his own bile. The chef life is treated me well. It has given me the ability to get drunk and make money. But I had to quit drinking a little while back because I had brain surgery. And you'd think I'd quit drinking to be a better father to my kids, but nah. It took life-threatening surgery to my head to do that. So it's given me time to think, with the part of my brain that works, that of what really matters in this life. Peace out.
Michael Sutton, ladies and gentlemen. Michael Sutton.
So our final performer of the evening, ladies and gentlemen, has been teaching art at the Christian Brothers High School in Sacramento for 25 years. He's been married for 37 years, got a bunch of kids, got a bunch of grandkids, and he has a great story that I think any married person who's been married for over 6 months can probably relate to. Our final performer of the evening is Findley Macintosh, ladies and gentlemen. Findley!
Thank you, everyone, for being here. It's been quite a journey. And it all began last spring when I made my wife really mad. I mean, really mad. Mad like that special way only a husband can make a wife. So I was home underlining passages in my Bible when Carol asked me to go to the hardware store. When I got there, they were selling little baby chicks. So adorable, for $2, American dollars. I thought, wouldn't the grandchildren love to have chickens to feed and care for? So I came home with a perforated cardboard box with 4 little tiny balls of chirp, chirp, chirp. I'm kind of romantic that way. My wife's reaction was a bit different. There was an avalanche of angry words. Irresponsible, idiot, some military-grade F-bombs. My second mistake, wouldn't it be fun to give them stripper names? Now, I don't know what strippers' names are, so thought, I'm gonna have to go on a field trip to a strip club with a big stack of singles for research, to be authentic, for the children. Nope. Carol put her hands on her hips and in a very I'm-in-charge voice says, the grandchildren will name the chicken. Dag nab those grandkids. This is gonna be so lame. They're gonna come up with stupid, embarrassing names. Lala, Fluffy, Mrs. Snuggles. But I gotta say, the kids stepped up. Sweet little Rowan named his chicken after his favorite Hot Wheels car, Bone Shaker. Anna went with Hilda. Johnny went with Chickie Minaj. And Jacob, in a clear suck-up to his grandmother, decided to name his chicken after her favorite singer, Paul McCartney. I pointed out to Jacob that these were all hens, but he insisted. So Paul it is. Paul the transgender. A very inclusive coop. Sadly, Paul was viciously attacked by a transphobic stray cat and was badly injured. Grandma sprang into action. The Davis Enterprise called it a hate crime. She used eyedroppers of water. There was a shoebox stuffed with straw, a heat lamp. She broke out the prayer candles, holy cards of saints. Miraculously, Paul made a full recovery. Yeah, really. My fly girl is a chicken whisperer. Who knew? And now Carol had bonded with the chickens. She regularly makes them pancakes, pasta. I came home from school one day after a hard day of shaping the youth of America, and I found a Tupperware of linguine. Que bella, it looked delicious. I started to take the lid off, and Carol snapped at me. No, that's for the chickens. Dag nab those chickens. Now, you city folk may think chickens are gentle, peaceful animals, but you would be wrong. Chickens act more like convicts in a maximum security penitentiary. They use their beaks on each other like a shank. If we throw them table scraps, they'll grab what they can and run off to a private part of their yard so they don't have to share with the other inmates. If one of them shows any vulnerability, they will get pecked without mercy. They are hardened chickens who make pleasant, delightful clucking noises and lay delicious eggs. Sophie, the dog, loves to bark and growl at them just to let them know that she is the yard boss. Given the price of eggs, and despite all the angry words, the mockery, the ridicule I endured to bring a little bit of whimsy to our yard, I think the only word you can use to describe my actions last spring, if you think about it, visionary. Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Colonel Sanders. But don't think about it too much. I wonder how Carol feels about goats. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Findley Macintosh, ladies and gentlemen. Out of a round of applause for everybody. Let's bring him out here. Findley, stay right here. There's Ed Lewis, ladies and gentlemen. Come on out, Matthew. Matthew Elliott. Maria Contreras-Tibbet. Kurt Roggli. Chuck White, and Michael Sutton. Give them a nice round of applause. Let them hear it. They worked really hard, these folks.